Everybody, my name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And I've got a special guest from WTNH, the sports guy himself, one of the pillars, as I said when I tweeted yesterday and tagging him in here, John Pierson, who, is, as I mentioned, one of the pillars when it comes to sports, has been around the game for a long time and just a well-respected young man. I'll say young man still. John, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
All the kind words are going to get you really far. So keep them coming, Chris. It's great. It's great to join you finally. I've watched your work for a while. You do a great job, and it's great that you are giving so much attention to local sports in the state, which it has been one of the things I've loved to do for years and years and years. Grew up in the state, and I love when athletes and teams and schools and coaches do well in the state of Connecticut, because it's good for all of us, really.
I appreciate that. Now, before we get into your time with WTNH, I know you mentioned how you went to school, I think, what was it, for engineering? So I want to go back to that, because I feel like everybody has the stories are unique, but the lane is never the same. It's always different lanes. What was your lane as far as what led you to what you're doing now?
Well, I mean, yeah, we all do. Like people ask, how did you get here? Well, this was my path. You're going to have a different one. The bottom line is hard work will always pay off in the end. But I started out, listen, I was like everybody. I played sports as a kid, loved sports growing up. I was playing sports when I wasn't practicing, or, friends in the neighborhood, that kind of thing. I went to Eli Whitney in Hamden for carpentry. And I loved carpentry. I wanted to have my own business one day. And then I got to a point where I'm like, I want to take this even further. So out of Eli Whitney, I went to UNH. I wanted to take engineering, civil engineering. And I did that for a semester, but while I was working a part-time job pumping gas, one of the sportscasters, Anthony James, who worked here at TNH years ago, drove in. I was pumping his gas. Now, anyone who knows me when I was younger, I was very shy. I was a kid in high school class that if the teacher called me to read aloud, I was like, don't pick me, don't pick me, don't pick me. And then I'm like, So for me to kind of step out of that comfort zone a little bit, and I asked him, I knew who he was. I just said to him, hey, how do you get into what you do? How do you become a sportscaster? And he was gracious enough to talk to me for a few minutes and led me to Bob Bacozzi, who was a sports director here at the time. He says, why don't you give him a call about an internship? And, I made a call, and Bob invited me down for an interview for an internship. Came down, interviewed, and I got the internship. And I walked in the door and I fell in love with it. I'm like, wow, it was a way to stay involved with sports. So then I just totally shifted gears, and I switched over to Southern for their communications program and minored in journalism. And that was back in September of 1988. No, was that 88? Yes, September of 88. And here I am. I interned here all the way through college, and then got hired here in 95, and I've been here ever since. So it's amazing how one conversation, one question, and the courage to ask, led me here. Because if I never asked that day, I don't know, maybe I'd be an engineer, maybe I'd be designing roads around the state. Lord knows they need them for better traffic patterns. But anyway, yeah, listen, that's all it took. It's just me asking a question, and boom, I took it. The door opened, and I ran right through it.
See, I think that's such a I don't want to say life lesson, but maybe a valuable lesson as far as when you're growing up, to not be, and everybody is shy. I mean, I was shy growing up for the longest time. It took quite a bit for me to kind of break out. And now here I am doing what I'm doing, which is nowhere close to what you're doing. But just, I think for people who are coming through the high school ranks or even college, all it takes, one conversation, one moment. You don't have to be like this perfect superstar. You just got to be yourself, be polite, be humble, but most importantly, be who you are. And for you, that led you to what you're doing now, on top of obviously the hard work.
Yeah. No. And I tell that to my own 4 kids. They've all grown up now, but, and I tell it to the kids who come and intern for us. The fact that they're here is a good start too, but even when you get into it, it's, eyes, ears open, mouth not always open. You open it when you need to, you ask the right questions, but you always show an interest. Like, we do get a lot of interns and people want to get into it, and you have to be motivated. It's like anything, you got to be a little bit motivated. And you've got to work at it, and you got to put your time in. I know everyone wants to have weekends off and holidays off, but I started in this business working, weekends for, if 16 years, 17 years, worked all the holidays, but still was able to, get my schedule so I can get to my kids' events and whatnot. But again, there was a lot of sacrifice, to it. But it was well worth it because, I love what I do, and I've been lucky enough to do it as long as I have. And I really wouldn't change much of anything. I'm really happy though. I kind of broke out of my shell that day back. I can't remember when it was when I asked him about getting into this, and that opened the door. And that's the thing. You just ask. Sometimes you ask, what's the worst someone could say? No, or, oh, we're not doing anything. But you tried. Just try and throw it out there, because you never know what door might open, and that door might lead to the next door, which might lead to the next door. So yeah, it is a story I share quite often.
Now, as you were kind of progressing, as you did, like you mentioned, from 88 and then working your way through all the way to like working weekends, working holidays, um, how difficult was it in the beginning? Because I feel like for everybody, there was a certain part of, the growing pains. I mean, I could think about just for the radio side, when I took over for Bob Sagendorf. I don't know if you know who he
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
ATR has been around forever.
I
Still
do.
part of the radio station, has helped me a lot.
Yeah.
There were when he said, "All right, Chris, you're going to have the football and the basketball." I was like, "Oh, gee." Like I can be honest with you. There was probably a first couple games for both basketball and football where I had anxiety. I was nervous. I was anxious. I was like, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
But then it was just like jumping on a bike, and then one thing
Yeah.
led to another. For you, John, when did the growing pains you think start and then end?
Well, listen, first of all, I do know Bob, and great work. And, he saw something in you, so he wouldn't have thrown you in there if he didn't believe you can do it. But
Mhm.
when you're a young guy like that, and the same thing here, I had people believe in me, show me the ropes, but you're always going to be nervous. There's that nervous energy you're going to have. And that's okay. That kind of motivates you and fuels you. And then you just gotta kind of like grasp it all in. But listen, I got an opportunity here at Channel 8. I started here as a producer in 95. I worked really hard. I always wanted to be on the air, but out of college, I went to ESPN. I got a recommendation from Bob Bacozzi. I started as a production assistant up there. I worked there about a year and a half. They opened up a producer's position here at Channel 8. Bob called me and asked me if I want to be a full-time producer. I waited because I was doing really well at ESPN. And I said, you know what? Yeah, I want to give it a shot. So then I produced for the first 6 years here, got a real good base of building shows and content, understanding timing. And then I got a chance to get on the air in August of 2001. I got the general manager and the news director at the time, Hank Yagi and Tom Manning, gave me a crack. And it was hard in this market because a lot of times you had to go somewhere and have a job or two on the air before you came here. So I got on the air, and I was nervous as heck. I had 4.5 minutes of sports, and I probably did it in 3 minutes and 40 seconds because I was reading so fast. I just wanted it to be over. But they all saw something in me, and then eventually you see it in yourself. But I think it honestly, it took me probably a good year to feel settled. I tried to be me when I could, as soon as possible, but you have to learn. It's you're learning on the air, and it's not just about going out there and reading stuff. Like now we're out shooting all our own stuff, we're editing our own stuff, we're producing our own stuff.
Mhm.
There's a lot that goes into it. And you always got to be willing to be flexible and learn new things.
Mhm.
But that nervousness was there for a bit, but preparation, as you I'm sure know, like half the battle is preparation. Be prepared, and that will turn up on the air. And listen, we're all going to make mistakes, we're all going to fall down, and that's okay. Like in the early going, when I made a mistake or I tripped on a word, I
Mhm.
get really mad at myself, and I get really angry at myself. And it took a while to get over that, as saying, all right, well, I was 6. Well, we got a 10 o'clock show coming. We got an 11 o'clock show coming. You know what? The show goes on, you can't get it back. So
Mhm.
you kind of let it go. But yeah, now I'm to the point where, there's no nerves. I used to have everything scripted and written out because I was really paranoid. Now I've learned that less is more, and I feel better about it. So it's like anything. It's like working out, right? I mean, how many times do you use a muscle? Like if you use it enough, you get comfortable with it enough, and it grows. So, but yeah, I don't know if that answered your question. That was a long way to go.
No, I like that. You kind of gave me the Al Leiter thing, except at least you gave me a direction. Al Leiter would be like, all right, he'll go here, go here, go here. It's like, come on, Al, just land it.
Yeah, yeah,
You answered the question perfectly. And to go to your point about being prepared, because my now fiance could speak to, she sees how much I prepare for these high school games and college games as well. And she's like, why do you prepare so much for them? And I'm
yeah,
like, I prepare because my biggest fear is well, first is to get the young man or young woman's name wrong, which I
yeah,
try very hard not to do. But two, I don't want to be not prepared where I don't have an answer to a question either about the talent, about the team, or anything. And I think you would feel the same way because, like you said, especially now, you're cutting, you're producing, you're doing so much to have to make sure that you give everybody what they want to see when they're watching the news at night for sports.
yeah, yeah. And the preparation isn't even just about the presentation part of it, because but that is ultimately what the end product is. So, and sometimes that's the thing. Eric Dobratz and I talk about all the time. Sometimes that's the thing we work on the least is the presentation because we're so busy
Mhm.
sitting down. Like it's funny. Come high school season, I want to try to cover as much as I can at different places in the state, whether it's in Waterbury, New London, New Haven, Wallingford, getting up to Bloomfield. I want to spread it out, but like, so I'll look at schedules and be like, all right, well, there's a 3 o'clock game here, and then we got one at 4 about 20 miles away. So, and then we got a 6 o'clock game here. It's like bang, bang, bang. Try to get a little bit of everything. So you include as many people as you can. That's part of the preparation. The preparation is when you come back, put all the video shot, you ingest it in, you edit it, then you're writing it. Then you mention, high school athletes' names. I apologize to every athlete out there. Your name was going to come up sometimes, and sometimes we always don't know how to pronounce them. Sometimes it's something Eric shot or Bob shot or Fred shot, and I'm seeing a name for the first time that's rolling up the prompter, and I look at it, I'm like, oh boy, and I go, and you hope you get it right, and we don't mean to get it wrong. We want to get everything right, but there's so much that goes into it. But yeah, you know what? You'll never lose being prepared. So I will take a lot of time, and if I get someone's name wrong or we get something wrong, we'll make sure we don't get it wrong the next time. But there's a lot to cover in the state. I know we're a small state, but border to border, from the high school stuff, the college stuff, we dip our toe in with the pro teams and regional pro teams sometimes, and all the sports in all the high schools and all the colleges. It's not just the footballs and basketballs, hockey's, baseballs, wrestling. We're trying to track and field. You try to spread it out as much as you can. So you prepare as much as you can because that will always be a safe base for you to work off of.
And a guy who's also prepared to, like you mentioned, Eric. I had the pleasure to do the championships for the boys and girls basketball up at Mohegan or down at Mohegan, depending on
Yeah,
where you are. I'm down because I live in Waterbury.
it's
And
over for us.
yeah, exactly. So, and I said hi to him, but I didn't want to bother him because, and I think he was with his son, but he was working and he was able to do three things at once. And I was like, Eric, I just want to say hi. I didn't want to bother him,
Yeah,
but you talk about even doing all of that, being a part of that environment. He's still busting his butt, which is no surprise. He always does. But
yeah,
that's just one example of it.
yeah, yeah, and that's how we we do it because um your your focus is to shoot the game, and Eric and I both shoot like every play of every game because you never know what's going to happen. You never know when a great highlight, a great moment is going to happen. So we're out there at the games, at the schools, on the fields, and we love that part of it because it's nice to see everybody, and you try to talk with everybody. Sometimes you'll see us and then we're gone because like I mentioned, you're trying to hit one game here, and then I got two more games to cover, so you stagger, so you spread out the wealth of coverage. So we always we wish we could stay the whole game and talk to everybody all the time, but and we that's our favorite part of the job, to be honest with you, being out in the field, meeting people, and telling the stories. But again, we have deadlines. Like I can't like be out at a game. I'll get off the set at 6:30 and then head out to a couple games at 7. And then I'm looking at my, watch and being like, okay, all right, I can stay here till this time. I can stay here till this time. I got to be back by this time because I got to put the video in. I got to produce my show. I got to put my graphics in. I got to write it, and then I got to get ready. So we know our time limits, so that's why we're kind of like bang, bang, bang.
Mhm.
But that comes over time too. Like if I had to do this, 20 something years ago, I'd probably be a nervous wreck. But now I'm comfortable and secure, and I know my limits, and that's what we work with.
I think what's funny is that for people who may not know the structure, like you just mentioned, all of that, a lot of people would show up to the set with their tie over here, their hair all messed up, the shirt all, you know what, and be like, all right, I'm ready to go.
Listen, you have no idea. There's times if you don't see us, like we usually do a tease before the show, before sports comes up. If you don't see us, something's going on back there. There's many times we're pushing video or writing a script or filling in a score just before the commercial break, or running out after the commercial break and updating a score. But I always try to make sure we're ready to go. So it's a quick little this, little this, and go. So again, that's what goes back to what you said earlier. Sometimes the thing we work on the least is the thing we should be focusing on the most, which is the presentation. But because we're really content oriented here, I don't want to be greedy about it, but I want to have as much on as I can to spread the wealth around the state.
John, we've just about run out of time, and it's like time flies, and I really do appreciate you coming on here. But before I let you go, your time at WTNH, and hopefully you're not leaving anytime soon.
I hope not.
You've done so much there, and I think a lot of people want to keep seeing it. Is there any particular, it could be, maybe a game that you were catching, maybe a broadcast. Is there any sort of moment during your time there where you will never forget it?
There's a lot.
If there's one you can pick out of the many.
Yeah, listen, from a professional standpoint, being at the very first UConn men's national championship in '99 with Jim Calhoun, Rip Hamilton, and that bunch, that was pretty amazing to see that with my own eyes. About a couple rows away. That was pretty awesome to see that all come together on that night. Another one was Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird and Swin Cash and Tamika Williams, Asia Jones, that group going undefeated down in San Antonio, like 39-0, I think 2002. And then winning again in 2003, 4, so 3 in a row that I got to cover. Those are the ones that are big. Those are the ones that will always stand out. But the great thing is I've met so many great people over the years. I mean, you can go from, I look at what Dan Orlovsky has done. I remember covering him as a high school sophomore at Shelton High, and look at him now, through his NFL career, now taking off as a broadcaster. It's great to see him. Diana Taurasi is one of my favorite athletes of all time. But there's also moments like, as a dad, I got to, watch my kids play high school sports, and for all the things I've seen and all the things I've done, the greatest thing I ever did was watch my kids play sports, try their best, and pick themselves up when they didn't have a good game. So to me, that will always be the most important thing to me. But I've had some really great. There's so many moments. Honestly, we can go another half hour easily on things I've covered, people I've met, teams I've met, coaches. The list goes on and on. It's sometimes when I step back and think about it, I'm like, I'm living out like kind of a boyhood dream in a lot of ways.
John, this was a lot of fun. I really do appreciate it. And hopefully I can get you back on. I know you're extremely busy. And again, I do appreciate the amount of time you took to come on here. Hopefully I could have you sometime in the future, because like I said, this was a blast.
Yeah, no, great. It would be great. No, if you want, Eric and I could jump on and join you together. We've got similar stories, both grew up in the state, played high school sports in the state, both have a passion, to cover sports in this state, and we love what we do. So if you ever want to get us both on, we're around. We'll definitely make time, and you keep up the good work too. I know, it's really great to give the kids who work so hard in high school the coverage and recognition, and the coaches, who sometimes get lost in the shuffle, get a lot of criticism for, why aren't you playing this one, that one, and who are in it for the right reasons. There's a lot of great coaches out there, and they deserve a lot of credit. And you bring a lot of that to light too. So keep up the good work on that end as well.
I appreciate it, John. Thank you very much. Credit goes to the coaches, to the players, to the parents who watch, and everybody. It's not me. I'm just the talking annoying head. They do all the work. I have the easiest job. I get to just use my voice and talk. They actually have to play, and you know.
Yeah.
But again, I appreciate the kind words and thank you very much.
Yeah, no
That'll
problem.
wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. And where CT stands for Connecticut Talent, I'm Roger and find them all. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and be well.